Is it just me, or does Hunter look like a G.I. Joe? Welcome back everyone to these reviews I've been doing of The Bad Batch. I'm Axel Myth, the Star Wars guy. This episode starts out in the reaches of space on Clone Force 99's ship. As it does not have a name yet, I will refer to it as the shuttle. It seems like a bunch has happened to the shuttle ever since the last episode. The lights are flickering and doesn't seem to be running quite right either. Hunter tells Echo to do something about it, and Echo does a really relatable thing and says, "Add it to the list." Hunter asks what Tech has been doing. Now Tech is doing something that I feel like should have been addressed maybe in the last episode. He's trying to figure out what's going on with the inhibitor chips. It's not quite explained what he's trying to figure out, but I believe he's trying to conduct research on the effects of this chip and just how much their programming is intertwined with this chip. He's also curious to see if the chips really are defective or if they're just laying dormant waiting to strike. I think that's what's going on. Although it seems like Omega knows what's going on with these inhibitors, because I realize whenever the subject is brought up, Omega is always the one to explain what exactly the inhibitor chips do. Not a complaint, but being buddies with the Kaminoans probably comes with knowledge. Just an observation, really. Just a side note, despite what he's done, they do miss their brother Crosshair. And with that conversation, the question of whether or not it's even his fault is brought up. I like this. I would have liked to know how much of Order 66 was their fault versus some sort of mind control they're under. Anyway, that leads us to the B plot. Although I must admit that this felt more like the main plot than the actual A plot. Back on Kamino, Tarkin and Nalase seem to be amplifying Crosshair's inhibitor chip, much like in the first episode. There's this new guy, I sort of forgot his name, but he's all for getting rid of clones for new recruits. Less in a disgusted way that Tarkin seemed, but more in a way that you really get the impression that he's looking out for the Empire. Back wherever the Bad Batch are, the planet isn't given a name, but something goes out in their ship and they crash. Wrecker starts panicking, then realizes Omega's still there. "We're gonna be just fine." It's just something that made me laugh. They crash, and disappointment just sets in. Nobody said, "Another happy landing." They seem to have crash landed on the moon of the planet. Tech and Echo troubleshoot the ship, and it's some sort of capacitor. Conveniently, they have one on board the shuttle. I wasn't going to question this too much. It's not the only too convenient thing in Star Wars I've let slide. The part is as big as a lightsaber hilt, so it wouldn't be out of the question to be in a storage compartment somewhere. Tech and Echo get to work putting the capacitor into place. We get a look at these new recruits, though I don't think they were given any names, and they were just given task of getting rid of Saw Gerrera's camp, the camp from the first episode. And Crosshair is put in charge. Something worth of note is that they're wearing black clone trooper armor, so I wonder, were these supposed to be like the first dark troopers from Rogue One? We start seeing that the Kaminoans are really getting tired of Tarkin and this Empire. One of these recruits questioned whether or not Crosshair should really be in charge, saying, "If clones are so good, why are they looking to replace you?" Crosshair says nothing. We already know the answer that's been given. It gives me more of a feeling that there has to be another reason, but it wouldn't surprise me if there isn't. We do see this sort of thinking today. Tech and Echo find a bunch of scratches on their ship, and it's not from the recent crash. They get back into the ship, and the capacitor is taken. The type of lizard's name is dropped, and it seems to live off of energy, I guess? Hunter starts to make his way off the ship. Omega begs to go with him, and he's all like, "Well, okay, just stay close." They make their way out. Hunter is tracking the animal, and Omega asks if she can learn it too. Hunter explains that it's just one of the enhanced abilities that he has. We already know this, but Tech and Wrecker have it as well. Crosshair is brought up again, and we see that Hunter feels really guilty that Crosshair was left behind. A good soldier never leaves a man behind. They're being attacked by the lizard thing, and Hunter is left without a space mask. Omega being protected by Hunter. Omega is able to put the mask back on him, but he's still knocked out. She does call for help, but there's no response. They do mention that the shuttle's comms are out, but they still have their arm devices, so I'm not really sure why those aren't working. But anyway, Omega decides to go it alone. She grabs his pistol and a flashlight, and she follows the lizard into this hole. The small force of the Empire land on Onderon and clean the Republic troopers off the camp. But when it's civilians, one of the newbies says, "We're hired to be soldiers, not an execution squad," and ignores Crosshair. He starts telling the others what he thinks they should do, basically arrest them and turn them in. Crosshair's all like, "Want to know why I'm in charge? Because I can do what needs to be done." He shoots the recruit who questions him. Since they were wearing their helmets, I couldn't tell, but I thought it was the same guy from earlier. So then that makes the small force subscribe to the idea of executing the rest of the camp under Crosshair's orders. Just like you should subscribe to this channel, like this video, ring the bell for more content, and leave a comment because it really motivates me to know that people like this content. Omega's almost attacked by the lizard, and she's actually about to kill it, but she realizes that it's actually drawn to light. So all she needs to do is disregard her flashlight, grab the capacitor, and run for it. She succeeds. I really hope her special power isn't she's really good with animals. It would feel way too Disney princess-ish. I don't have a problem with Disney princesses. I even name dropped one in the last episode with what a scene felt like, but there's a definite difference between making someone remember a scene from a princess movie and turning an entire character from Star Wars into a Disney princess. Like, I even understand when it's Jedi that connect to animals, all things are supposed to be connected and all. It's not a superpower, it's more of like a spiritual connection type thing. But when a clone just has the power to communicate with animals, it sort of takes the mysticism out of the Force. They could possibly pull it off if Omega's Force sensitive, but that's a different story. We'll cross that bridge if we have to get to it. Long story short, I don't much like that idea either. Brings up way too many questions for the prequels. So her and Hunter get back to the ship, and they all take off the planet. It was established at the beginning that Omega doesn't really have a place to sleep, so she's been sleeping on the floor. But Wrecker makes her own room for the ship. Pretty touching sentiment, really. Just a side note, Wrecker seems to have a headache for most of this episode, and he seems to be holding the spot where his inhibitor chip would be. Are we supposed to read into that? I think we are. Tell me what your theory is down in the comments. So this wasn't the last scene, but I wanted to save it for last. We get to see Crosshair's group return to Kamino. Tarkin's rather impressed that the troopers did what they were told and that they only suffered one casualty, leaving the commander to be like, yeah, totally, I knew it was going to be like this. It's not really explained if they know that Crosshair had to kill one of them. I don't think they know. But when the group returns to their chamber, it looks like Crosshair's almost sad, like he regrets what he's done. But I guess we'll see. I'm not gonna lie, for the most part, this felt like a filler episode, which is not a good thing for only episode 3. The most important point was the B plot, and there just wasn't enough of it. I'm not saying I wanted to see more slaughtering, or even what Crosshair was up to, but what the Bad Batch was up to just seemed a little pointless. We didn't find out anything, and there wasn't that much character development even for Omega this time. I'm okay with not knowing her enhanced abilities yet, but teasing it all the time will just get old later. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed watching this episode. These are just observations and thought I've made while viewing. I hope they have a story to tell with these characters. As of right now, besides the pilot episode, it seems like the rise of the Empire with the Bad Batch in the background, when the show really should be Bad Batch with the Empire growing as a background arc. Anyway, that's all I have to say. This is Axel Myth, the Star Wars guy, and I'll catch you guys next time.